In pretty much all the previous videos, we've either focused solely on data manipulation or solely on graphing. And I tried to mix in some data manipulation in the graphing videos, but we really didn't do all that much. But this week we'll be learning methods of manipulating your data in order to make better graphs specifically. In a couple of our graphing videos, we had to do things like set columns as factors or subset the data frame before we graphed. But this week I'm going to teach you two new methods of manipulating your data in order to not only make better graphs, but also making your data graphable in the first place. Because as we'll see, sometimes your data simply isn't in the right format for graphing in R, and you'll need to move things around a little bit. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the function Ddply. And this is in the plier package, so we're going to have to load that. But before we jump into the code, I'm going to show you some sample data just so you can see what's going on behind the code, because it's a little hard to understand unless you actually see it happening. So when we actually write the code, and I will go over this 2 times because it can be kind of hard to understand just looking at data or just looking at the code, is it's taking your data frame, it's splitting it up based on one of the factors or one of the columns, it's going to apply a function, and then it's going to combine those back into a data frame. So you've got split, apply, and combine. And before Ddply, and actually these are 3 separate functions as well that you could also use in order to do this, but the Ddply function packages them all together in one, so it's just a single step, which is a really, really powerful tool. So here I've made some example data just to illustrate this. You've got year, month, and number of cookies eaten. And I've used this example because when we go to graph it, we're going to use very, very similar data. So for this data set, what I want to do is instead of graphing every single number in the cookies column, I just want to graph 2 points for this entire data set. Even though there are 24 numbers here, I only want 2 numbers. I want the mean number of cookies eaten in 2000 and the mean number of cookies eaten in 2001. And what I could do is go through and subset my data and then get the mean 2 times for each year and then make a new data frame and graph that. But say this data frame is actually 50 years long, say. So instead of just having 2 years worth of data, I have 50 years. That would take forever to go through and subset the data for each year, apply a function, and then mush it back together. So instead, I'm going to use Ddply. And what I'm going to tell Ddply is that I want to divide this data frame up by year. And then for each year, for each of those 12 numbers, I want it to average the 12 numbers in the cookies column together and give me one answer. So this is an illustration of what it's doing. It's saying, all right, I'm going to say when the year equals 2000, I'm going to get all the numbers for that in the cookies column, and then I'm going to average them all together. So take the mean, and then it's going to give me a data frame back, and it's just going to have the year column and the number of cookies eaten column. As you might be able to see, this is an incredibly powerful tool for applying functions to individual parts of a data frame by a certain factor very, very quickly. So instead of going through and subsetting my data for each year and then applying the mean function and then recombining all of those individual numbers into a data frame, it's literally 1 line of code, and it gives me a whole new data frame with all those numbers. So that's the basic overview of what Ddply does. And in the next video, we're going to jump into our code and actually see what that looks like in R.